welcome back. This is Morning Express. Let's take you through the papers, get you up to date with what's making headlines. The front page of the Standard this morning, if you were to grab yourself a copy, the big story here is about NEC boosters seized in exam cheating purge. And if you go through the details here, the state dissolves the council's board over major irregularities that bloated last year's examinations. Now, the police stormed the NEC offices and arrested the Chief Executive Officer, Joseph Kivilu, alongside 8 other senior officers. And President Uhuru Kenyatta, personally concerned by the perennial cancellation of examination results, and the former University of Nairobi Vice Chancellor, Professor George Magoha, has been appointed the new chairman of the board to replace Professor Kabiru. And also the initial investigation reveals complicity, irregularities, and illegitimate activities on a number of fronts within and outside of NEC. So there you go. That's the big story that we're looking at here. And about 7,700, that is the number of cheating students for the KCPE and KCSE in 2015. And 4,864, the number of cheating students for the both KCPE and SCE in 2014. So the number seems to close to have doubled, and that is very, very sad. But also on the front page, we are looking at the agony of 10 children left to suffer after a vaccine goof. 10 of the 28 children who were paralyzed after receiving injections in Busia County have now developed more health complications, and parents yesterday recounted how the health of the children had deteriorated after they failed to get treatment from the public hospitals. It's a very sad story too. And they're saying the 7-year-old, one of them actually is 7 years old and cannot understand what she's told, neither can she follow simple instructions. So there's a mental disability right there with the children as well who were affected, and that was after they were given the wrong malaria injections. But you can follow up the story on page 6 of the Standard as well to get full details of that. Let's take a look at page 3 of today's Standard. And Prince William is in Kenya to attend the wedding of his ex-girlfriend, and that is Jessica Craig, who gets wedded tomorrow. She was a girlfriend when they were teenagers. Now, he is here as well also to take part in a conservation drive as well. And he visited President Uhuru Kenyatta. That was yesterday. The two discussed areas of cooperation and the close ties between Kenya and the United Kingdom. The president appreciated the Duke's involvement and support in wildlife conservation, and he highlighted Kenya's progress in combating poaching. And he also disclosed that he would preside over the torching of 120 tons of ivory and 1.5 tons of rhino horn. That is going to be next month, so some good news there. Also expecting so many other public figures who are going to witness this specific event that is going to be happening at the end of April. So it's quite some good news that we're looking at here. And the Duke of Cambridge, is one that is passionate about wildlife conservation, specifically the elephant conservation as well. Now, let's take a look at other stories on page 4 of the Standard. As a continued story about the police storming NEC offices and arresting officials over exam irregularities for the year 2015. That is on page 4. And Kenya also protests the mistreatment by Tanzania. Now, the Foreign Affairs Ministry has launched a formal, or will launch a formal complaint with their Tanzanian counterparts over the mistreatment of Kenyans in Tanga. Now, remember, the Energy Cabinet Secretary Charles Keter and his Principal Secretary Joseph Njoroge, as well as the Petroleum PS, that is Andrew Kamau, and the LAPSSET Chief Executive Officer Sylvester Kasuku, were denied entry into the Tanga port, and their passports were confiscated. This is a story that is brewing following the whole pipeline deal between Kenya and Uganda, as well as Uganda and Tanzania. Now, they had arrived in the region alongside a Ugandan delegation for the inspection of the port that is competing with Lamu and Mombasa as exit point for Uganda's petroleum that is in Hoima in western Uganda. But, the reasons they're giving here is that they could not confirm the matter, but then again, it's going to be handled by the rightful authorities. The Tanzanian government was aware of the planned visit, which was part of an assessment of the 3 ports of Lamu, Mombasa and Tanga to check the suitability of the ports for Uganda's petroleum. But, what do we say? There's a bit of brewing friction between these 3 East African nations, that is between Kenya and Uganda and Kenya and Tanzania now. So hopefully it can be resolved. Let's move on and take a look at, on page 6, there's that full story about the Busia children who continue to suffer after a malaria injection went very awry. And the full details you will find on page 6. And hopefully the 28 children can get the right treatment and their mental capacity can be brought back to normal. If you go through page 8 of the Standard as well, you will find a story about Waiguru questioned over 180 million shillings loss at the youth fund, and the former CS says she did not know the circumstances under which the transactions were committed. Now, according to what they say, the former cabinet secretary yesterday denied being briefed on the loss of a youth fund's 180 million shillings. Members of the parliamentary committee castigated her for entrusting suspended Youth Enterprise Development Fund acting Chief Executive Officer, that is Catherine Namuye, with running of the public entity against an advisory by the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission that she wasn't fit to hold public office. There is the story. And also, we also know that some of the key management at the Youth Enterprise and Development Fund have offered to resign to allow investigations be carried out. So you can follow up that story as well in today's Standard. And counties also agreed to the controversial hospital equipment. Only Bomet Governor Isaac Ruto is yet to sign contracts to lease the 38 billion shillings modern medical equipment for the counties. And I don't know why he's the only one that hasn't done this. But this is despite the initial opposition of the leasing process and alleged failure by the government to consult the governors. So you take a look at that story too. And if you go on to page 11, court blocks the arrest of Kingi, Joho and 7 MPs. That is also in today's Standard on page 11. So grab yourself a copy or log on to standardmedia.co.ke for more details in the Standard paper. On to the Daily Nation. The front page is about the IEBC must go before 2017 poll, according to former Prime Minister Raila Odinga and CORD leader. And the reasons for that, he says, we will not go to the general election if there is no clear and reliable referee. IEBC has not shown any sign of accountability. That is according to CORD leader Raila Odinga. Now the court gives order barring the state and Jubilee Party from harassing opposition leaders and supporters. And the electoral team also says that CORD can restart the process of new signatures. That was according to what the chair of IEBC, Isaac Hassan, said yesterday. Also on the front page of The Nation, you will see a picture of President Uhuru Kenyatta and the Duke of Cambridge, that is Prince William, and the Duke of Cambridge pledged support to Kenya's conservation efforts as he met with the president. Same story that was carried in the Standard paper. Move on to page 3 of The Nation, and harsh weather is sparking hot jokes around the country. A wave of heat-related jokes has hit social media over the past 1 week, driven mainly by the rising temperatures across the country. And now you know it's been really hot around Nairobi, and people have been complaining about the increased temperatures as well. And on some days, temperatures have hit about 32 degrees Celsius here in Nairobi. Last week, there were reports that they were expected to rise to a high of 40 degrees Celsius in Mombasa. Now, this is one of the most hilarious pictures that one can actually check out in The Nation. It's actually also gone viral on social media. Now, there are a number of tweets as well that have been making rounds on social media, and one of the favorite ones is Dear Son, there's no contest. It's not even a competition. You are still the hottest thing on planet Earth, so nobody is in competition with you. Kindly stop showing off, as one of the tweets that is making lots of rounds. But that is on page 3 of The Nation. On page 4, there is Matiang'i sends exam chiefs home over cheating. And that is one of the biggest stories being followed as well into today regarding those officers who were, fired. Do I say disbanded? The entire examinations council was disbanded. Now, in the past, collusion between teachers and examiners was the biggest source of cheating, but social media now poses the biggest challenge, according to what's written in the Daily Nation. Move on to page 6 of The Nation. Disband the poll team before 2017. That is a continued story from the front page. And also, court gives order over state harassment, and you can also take a look at that in today's Nation. The back page of The Nation as well has got Kenya Ford's proposed change to key ICC rule. You can grab yourself a copy of today's Daily Nation as well to get more details. Let's now take you to the Star. And the front page of the Star today has got 10 judges being probed. Judiciary Ombudsman is investigating 5 judges from the Supreme Court, 1 from the Appeal Court and 4 from the High Court, as 768 complaints are registered in the last 3 months alone. That's the big story on today's Star's front page, and you can grab yourself a copy as well and take a look at what's going on in there. And they've also got a lot to do with politics. Kenya protests to Tanzania over CS Keter Dar es Salaam incident, and that was after their passports were confiscated for a number of hours there in Tanzania. So you take a look at that story too. On the inside, you will read about the corridors of power as well, and find out what a number of leaders around the country or politicians are saying about different issues. But on page 4 of the Star, you will find the full story about the Ombudsman investigating 10 judges for corruption, delayed ruling and skipping work, and you will find that story in the Star today. Also, on page 6, you will read about investing in Kenya is as hard as going to heaven, according to the CIA chief, that is Rasanga. You grab yourself a copy and take a look at those headlining stories. Now, the Business Daily front page, Macharia stops building of a new JKIA terminal and goes for the runway. The minister says 56 billion shillings project would yield little value and routes for work on a second runway that he thinks is going to be more valuable. The plan to construct a new 56 billion terminal at the JKIA in Nairobi has been shelved, putting an end to the project, which was among the first ones President Uhuru Kenyatta launched upon coming to power in June 2013. So take a look at that, and that's a story we're going to be following for you throughout the day as well here on KTN. And Waiguru tells off the XPS Mangiti over the loss of 180 million shillings from the Youth Fund. Take a look at that story. It's cutting across all the print papers, that is the Standard, the Nation, the Star as well. But if you take a look at other stories in business, why China is opening a new university every week without compromising quality, that's a story you need to take a look at in today's Business Daily on page 16 and 17. Also, the World Bank warns Kenya of a rising appetite for Chinese loans, and the World Bank has warned that Kenya's huge appetite for Chinese loans risks choking the economy on huge repayment burden. And as you can see, there's been a lot of uptake in loans from China as well as Japan lately. But take a look at today's Business Daily as well. Investors in the NSC get a 650 million shillings shares boost. That's also in the Business Daily today. Now, on the Standard, there's also the Pulse, but we will be talking more about what exactly is in the Pulse a little later on Hot Topics. There's also the Nairobian, and the Nairobian front page today, when sex scandals hit Parliament, and how politics, big money and power fuel steamy bunch, romance and also break families. Now, if you take a look at the story here, it's one continued, I think, from last week's Nairobian, and they talk about the activist who leaked a viral video, or a video that went viral about his relationship or affair with the member of parliament. Take a look at that as well into the Nairobian today. And I have not slept with my wife for 16 years, according to a pastor. What does this mean? I think this is going to make for a great conversation today. So take a look at the Nairobian as well. We're going to be taking a look at some of the stories in the Nairobian on hot topics. And will Charity Ngilu be Kenya's first woman governor? That is a question on page 12 of the Nairobian today. You can also take a look at the full story, that is the full details of the pastor who is saying it's been over a decade since he had his conjugal rights observed.